ते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतस्य सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यैश्वरम्। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Welcome to chapter 7 overview. Chapter 7 is entitled Jnana Vijnana Yoga, knowledge of the absolute. Lord Krishna is the supreme truth, the supreme cause and the sustaining force of everything, both material and spiritual. Advanced souls surrender to him in devotion, whereas foolish souls divert their minds to other objects of worship. This is like a two-line summary of the chapter. When we closed chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, towards the end Krishna is explaining that yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana. So a yogi who is always thinking of me, he is the best, Krishna says. In the beginning of chapter 7, Krishna is actually explaining how to do that. Like in chapter 6, Krishna said, faith comes from knowledge. Without knowledge, you may doubt Krishna's position. So, from 7th chapter to 12th chapter, Krishna is presenting the knowledge of himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, specifically meant to inspire and strengthen our bhakti. So in the beginning of the chapter itself talks about hearing, tak shrunu. The first 3 verses of this chapter, Krishna says, just hear. And Krishna is requesting Arjuna that hear of my transcendentally spiritual energies and the material energies. And he says that a transcendentalist who succeeds in truly knowing Krishna is a very, very rare being, very, very rare person, And up to text 12, Krishna is speaking about knowing his material and spiritual energies. And in the next 2 verses, Krishna is speaking about why we should surrender to Krishna. Because he is controlling the 3 modes of material nature, we have to surrender to him. And then in the next 15 to 19, those shlokas, Krishna speaks about the type of people who surrender to him and the type of people who never surrender to him. Then he also speaks about, in the next 5 verses, Krishna speaks about those people who surrender to devatas and those people who are impersonalists. And then the last 5 verses of the chapter, Krishna speaks about how bewilderment happens to the living entity and how to become free by knowing Krishna. So this is how the 30 verses of the 7th chapter goes. That is the flow of this chapter. In earlier chapters, you will find that Arjuna is asking Krishna a question. But in chapter 7, Krishna starts explaining how to get that constant remembrance of him that he described in the end of chapter 6. So, the very first verse itself, Krishna says, "Now hear, O son of Partha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt." So, Maya Sakta Manaf Partha. So, Mai Asakta Mana. By attaching your mind to me. Then he says, Yogam Yunjan Madashraya. By practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, Asamsayam Samagram Mam Yathat Jnasyasi. You can know me completely, without a doubt. And how do we attain that? Tak Srinu, simply by hearing from Krishna. So, the beginning of the chapter itself, the most important part of hearing. So, what is this hearing? In Vedas itself, you will find the word Shruti. Shruti means that which is heard. So, actually, this entire Vedic knowledge, the starting point is hearing. When you approach Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mahapurana, you will find Brahma also first. Brahma is the first created living entity and he is alone in darkness. The first thing is that he heard something. You will also find in other spiritual books, you will find that first there was the word. So always it is heard by the first entity. It is explained like that. So hearing is very, very important. Hearing is very, very important, and it's also very important what we hear and from whom we hear. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna, Tak Shrinu, hear from me. And then it goes on to describe what knowledge he is going to give to Arjuna. Krishna says that I am going to declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So Krishna says, basically, if you know what I am going to say now, nothing more you need to know. That is, he is going to explain, Krishna is going to explain himself as everything material and spiritual, phenomenal and numinous, material and spiritual. So, as our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada explains, complete knowledge means it includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. That is transcendental knowledge. So, what we see around us, what is making that act, and what is the source. So, this is complete knowledge. And Srila Ramanujacharya, the great Vaishnava saint, he says that Vijnana actually means knowledge of Krishna's form. That is the Divya Rupam of Krishna. When you know that, that is actually realized knowledge. And Krishna goes on to say, who is qualified to receive this knowledge? Krishna is very methodical in the way he presents the knowledge. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye yatataamapi siddhanam kaschinmam vetti tattvataha. Out of many thousands of men who endeavor for perfection, only those who achieve perfection will be very few. And among those very few people, hardly one can know Krishna. Kaschinmam vetti tattvataha. Kaschid. Hardly anyone can know Krishna fully. And we must understand that simply by realizing Brahman in an impersonal way or realizing Paramatma, it is not enough to understand Krishna. To understand Krishna as the son of Yashoda, Yashodanandan, the son of Devaki, Devaki Nandan, or as Parthasarathi, as the chariot driver of Partha, it is very, very difficult. Sometimes even the Devatas, they are not able to understand Krishna. So here Krishna says, hardly anyone knows me in truth. So this is expressed by various great personalities that we don't understand you. You know, Brahma says that, Shiva says that, all the great personalities at one point in time or the other, they will say, Krishna, we don't understand you. You know, so difficult. And then in the next 9 verses, Krishna will speak of how he is the source of both material and spiritual energies. This is Jnana and Vijnana, like the chapter says. So now he speaks about the Ashta Prakriti. Bhumirapo analo vayu khammano buddhirevacha ahankara itiyam me bhinna prakriti rashtada. First he is speaking about the Ashta Prakritis, his separated material energies. Bhumi, earth; Apa, water; Anala, fire; Vayu, air; Kham, ether; Mano, mind; Buddhi, intelligence; Ahankara, false ego. These are the 8 separated material energies of Krishna. It is actually, this 8, they are ranging from gross to subtle. And from these 8 elements are only coming the 24 elements that will later on get explained in chapter 13. And how they are separated from Krishna. That is, Krishna has empowered this material energy to move separately. That is why it is called Bhinna Prakriti. That is why you will always find that Krishna does not get directly involved in running the material affairs. He gives that responsibility to Prakriti or Mahamaya, as we call her. She is Krishna's external energy, Bahiranga Shakti of Krishna. That is what we see as Prakriti, and in separated 8 energies which become 24 and the entire creation takes place. And then Krishna says, beyond that there is also something more, the Tatashta Shakti. That is the living entities. Apareyam itastvanyam prakratim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharaye jagat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So then he speaks about the living entities, the jivas, which are called the Tatastha Shakti. Tatastha means one who is sitting in the border. Tata means border. That means the living entity is on the border of the material and spiritual existence. He can either flip this way or he can either turn the other way. Both are possible. Tatastha, on the border, sitting on the ledge, so to say. And everything that is created, their source will be one of these 2 natures. And Krishna says that you should know that I am the origin of this all and I am also the dissolution of this all. And then Krishna says that I will help you understand this. And Krishna gives an example. Matta parataram na anyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. Hey Arjuna, hey Dhananjaya, matta parataram na anyat. There is nothing, there is no truth superior to me. And you must understand, everything is resting upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Sutre manigana iva. So when you see a string of pearl, you actually see only the pearl. You will see all the pearls. You can't see the string. But you know that there is a string that is holding together all these pearls. So, only by hearing from Takshrinu, only from hearing from Krishna, you will be able to understand this. And those who do not understand this are the ones who say that there is no string. All I see is pearls. So, from this example, we understand that by hearing from Krishna, we will know, we will understand how Krishna is holding everything together. And then how he is the maintaining principle of all the various manifestations. He will go on to say, Rasoham of Sukaunteya, I am the taste of water, I am the light of sun and moon, I am Om in the Vedic mantras, I am the sound in the Antariksha, I am the ability in man. So now Krishna is saying how he is maintaining all the manifestations that we see in this world. Taste of water. Can you actually define the taste of water? You cannot. But you know that when you are thirsty, the only thing that can quench your thirst is water. And that taste you cannot explain. Krishna is that taste. Now you know, when we say it is very difficult to explain Krishna, this is how it is. Krishna says, I am the ability in man. So whatever we are actually able to do is simply because of Krishna. And Krishna says, I am the fragrance of earth, I am heat in fire, I am the life of all that lives, I am the penance of all the ascetics. Of all the great Rishi Munis, whatever tapasya they are doing, Krishna says, I am that tapasya. I am the heat in fire. You know that fire is very, very important for the existence of everything in this world. And Krishna says, I am the heat that is there in that fire. So, in everything, the maintaining principle, the existentiality of everything is actually dependent on Krishna. He says, I am the seed, original seed of all existence, intelligence of the intelligent, prowess of the powerful man. Buddhir buddhimatam asmi, tejas tejasvinamaham. And Krishna also says that I am the strength of the strong. And he says that I am also karma, which is not contrary to religious principles. So, how he is maintaining an essential principle of everything gets covered. And then Krishna says that whatever state of everything that is, whether goodness, passion or ignorance, all these three gunas are manifested by Krishna's energy. In one sense, everything is Krishna, but then Krishna is independent of all these things. And Krishna is not under the effect of the three gunas. In fact, everything is within Krishna. So, now we understand that actually this whole phenomenal world is working through the para and apara prakriti of Krishna. Para means spiritual, apara means material. So you have the para Shakti and the apara Shakti. With these two Shaktis together, Krishna is actually maintaining this entire manifested creation. And Krishna says, but since this world is always under a delusion due to the impact of the three modes of nature, they are not able to know Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is above the three modes. Because he is Trigunatita. He is Atita. Above the three modes, those who are under the three modes are unable to see Krishna. Just as I said, how when you see a string of pearls, if you have knowledge, you will know there is a string holding the pearls together. Otherwise, you only see the pearls. Same way, being under the modes of material nature, very difficult to understand Krishna. You can't see him. So, sometimes you feel, okay, so everything is here and everything is Maya and everything is Sattva, Rajo, Tamo Guna. So, Krishna is also very similar. But to answer that doubt, Krishna speaks in verse 14. He says, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mam Evaye Prabhadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. Krishna says, Daivihi Esha Guna. These are my divine energy. Daivihi Guna. Krishna says, divine energy of mind, which is called Maya. And Duratyaya, difficult to overcome. difficult to overcome. And whoever can surrender to Krishna, Mam evaye prabhadyante. If you surrender to me, certainly you can very easily cross over, he says. Maya metam taranti, to cross over. So this whole thing that looks like a unfathomable ocean of Maya, of the three modes, Krishna says that if you simply surrender to him, why? Because Krishna is the controller of all these things. It's his energy. So how to overcome that? By surrendering to him who is the source of that energy. Very simple. And if surrender to Krishna frees one from material nature, from birth and death, why is that everybody is not surrendering? Is that a question or not? And then Krishna says, what does he say? Namam dushkritino mutha prabhadyante naradhama maya apahridajnana asuram bhavam ashritaha. Now he is talking about 4 types of people who will never surrender to him. Namam dushkritino mutha, miscreants who are grossly foolish, mutha, fools. Prabhadyante naradhama, worst among human beings. Nara, adhama. Adhama means lowest. Nara means lowest among human beings. Then maya apahrita jnana, one whose jnana, one whose knowledge is stolen, apahrita, by Maya. So if someone's knowledge is stolen away by Maya, he does not surrender to Krishna. And asuram bhavam ashrita, one who is taking the atheistic nature of the demons, they also do not surrender. So foolish miscreants, lowest naradhamas, then maya apahrita jnana, when your knowledge is taken away by Maya, asuram bhavam ashrita, when you become like a demon. So these mudhas, you will find the acharyas are speaking that they are always working very hard. For what? To get some material gains. And these are material gains that will eventually get destructed. But they consider that this is the summum bonum of their life. And what do they actually enjoy out of that? Very little. You see, you work a lot, but the enjoyment that you get is very little. Such people are designated as mudhas. And then naradhamas, the lowest of human beings. The lowest of human beings means this human form of life is given to us with a specific requirement of trying to understand, look towards ourselves. This human life is the only life where you can ask this question, who am I? And those people who do not utilize this chance to ask this question, who am I? Those people are naradhamas. And then the maya apahrita jnanas. That is, you have knowledge, but it has been taken away. Very simply, in Bhagavad Gita, it states that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is nobody equal to him, there is nobody greater than him, and he is mentioned as the father of everyone, Parampita, right? But these clear statements also is not understood by a Maya apahrita jnana. So what happens? They will consider that Krishna is also like everybody else, a historic person, something. All kinds of nonsensical understanding about God. This is because of Maya apahrita jnana. So they also do not surrender. Then the asuram bhavam ashrita, the asuras. Asuras means they are openly atheistic. Their life's principle is only to say that no God. You see? And they may have some knowledge, but using that knowledge, they will deny and defy the principle of God. So these are called asuras. And Krishna says that these four type of people will never surrender to me. And then Krishna goes on to explain four types of people who surrender to him. Chaturvida bhajante mam jano sukritino arjuna artho jitnyasur artharthi jnani cha bharatarshava. Krishna says, Chaturvida bhajante mam. Four types of people bhajante, worship me. They are sukritina jana, means people who have done some piety, some pious activities they have done. They are sukritis. Sukriti means somebody who is doing good. Dushkriti means somebody who is doing bad. So in the previous shloka we read about namam dushkritino, people who have done bad. Now here jana sukritino, sukriti, people who have done good things. And four types of people surrender to Krishna. Krishna is artha. Artha means one who is distressed. Next is jignasu. Jignasu means the inquisitive. Then artharthi. Artha means wealth. Arthi, one who is looking for, one who is desiring for wealth. And then jnani, one who is searching for knowledge about the absolute. And these four types of people, they approach Krishna. Although Acharyas explained that these four, they are not having pure desires. They are not pure devotees yet. But they are pious people, sukritis. And they can actually become Shuddha Bhakta if they get the satsanga of a Shuddha Bhakta. You understand? These four types, Artha, Jitnyasu, Artharthi, Jnani, although they are not at this moment in time pure, they can become pure because they are Sukritis and they just need the right kind of association, right kind of people to move with, then they can become pure. And when a pious soul is turning towards Krishna, because he is artha, because he has got so much of distress, he needs some relief from sickness, some calamity, some difficulty and all these things. So that is serving as an impetus for him to approach Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this wonderful history about a Gajendra, a king of elephants, who had to fight a 1,000-year war with a huge crocodile when he had entered a lake to bathe with all his she elephants. And you know that a crocodile is very strong in water. Even though an elephant may be the strongest on land, he is not very strong when it comes to water. And there is a 1,000-year struggle between this huge crocodile and this elephant, who was actually a king in his previous birth. And then finally, because he is a Sukriti and he remembered some prayers that he had chanted in a previous life, he finally plucked a lotus flower with his trunk and he offered it to Krishna and called him Adi Mula, oh, the source of everything. And he offered his prayers, Artha, because he was in so much distress. He said, hey, Krishna, please help me. You see? So, Artha. And Jignasu is very, very curious to know. All the great rishis who very curiously put up questions, they are examples of Jignasu. And Artharthi means somebody who wants land, money, position, putra, patni, this, that and all these things. And because they are Sukritis and they are very fortunate, they approach Krishna to ask for these things. You see, that's very, very important. Like, again in Bhagavatam, we all read about the great history of that 5-year-old prince named Dhruva, who was not allowed to sit on his father's lap by his stepmother. And then he goes running to his own mother and asks him, why can't I sit on my father's lap? Then she says, well, you are not lucky enough. So what should I do? She says, you can petition the Supreme Lord. So where can you find the Supreme Lord? She says, go to the forest. That's where all the Rishi Munis go. So Dhruva runs to the forest. On the way, he meets his guru. Again, by the grace of Krishna, he meets Narada Muni. Narada Muni teaches him how to meditate on Krishna. And in 6 months' time, he sees the Supreme Lord. So, that is Artharthi. Means he actually wanted to sit on his father's lap. He actually wanted his father's kingdom. And he was a 5-year-old Kshatriya boy. But he was very fortunate. He directly approached the Supreme Lord and he got darshan of the Supreme Lord. So these are all characteristics of Sakama Bhaktas. They have some Kama. And the Jnani is actually, he is called a Jnana Mishra Bhakta. Means he has still some, he wants some knowledge. And with that knowledge, he wants to approach towards Mukti. One great example of this type of a personality is the narrator of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vedavyasa Maharishi. He was like this, he was a Jnani. So, these 4 types of pious people will approach Krishna, and then Krishna says, out of these 4, who is best? Krishna says, one who is in full knowledge and always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. I am very dear to him and he is very dear to me. Jnani is the best because he is free from material desires. The other 3 types we spoke about, they are Sakama Bhaktas. There is some karma kandi requirements they have, some desires they have. But the Jnani, he has no material desire. His desire is basically for knowledge only. So Krishna says, among these 4, Jnani is best. Because he is steady. He got Eka Bhakti. Because he is one point. I want to know about the Supreme Absolute Truth and I want to get there. You see? Whereas the other 3 types, I have some distress, I have some desire, and I am just curious. So, like this, out of these 4 type of people, the Jnani is the best. So then, you may think, okay, that means the other 3 are insignificant, only the Jnani is important. But Krishna says, all these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls. But he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me. So, although Jnani is very special, the other 3 are also patras of Krishna's affection, we must know. To put it very shortly, with whatever desire you approach Krishna, Krishna likes it. It is better than those people who never approach Krishna. Although my requirement is material, although I am Sakama, I have Kama in me still, doesn't matter, but at least I am approaching Krishna. And how long does it take for that Jnani actually to get there? Krishna explains in the 19th verse, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevam sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. He says, it is not an easy thing, Arjuna. Bahunam janmanamante. Many births it takes. At the end of many births, that jnana comes. What? Vasudevam sarvam. Everything is Vasudeva. With that knowledge, mam prapadyante, surrendering to me. But such people are very rare. That is called the Mahatma. Our Acharya Srila Prabhupada very clearly says, Mahatma is not a title that you will whimsically grant to anybody and everybody. This is the qualification of a Mahatma. What is? Vasudevam sarvamidi jnanavan mam prapadyante. One who knows that Vasudeva is Sarvam and surrenders to him is actually a Mahatma. So, this is also a clear message from 3rd chapter and 5th chapter that material desires must be given up to make spiritual advancement. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always said that you cannot have your 2 feet in 2 boats. You cannot have your 1 feet in the boat of materialism and 1 feet in the boat of spiritualism. Eventually, you will fall into the water. So, we must understand and try to focus more on what is spiritual, and that way, by focusing more on what is spiritual, automatically what is more material will go by itself. And then, what about those people who don't surrender to Krishna? They might be surrendering, but not to Krishna. Those who don't surrender, like the Asura, leave them. But there are other people, they are not surrendering to Krishna, but they are surrendering, right? So Krishna says, those whose intelligence are stolen by material desires surrender unto the Devatas and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So Krishna says, less intelligent people approach the Devatas. So now you may think that this is a very, very harsh statement by Krishna. No, not at all harsh. You know why? Because Devatas are empowered entities, empowered by Krishna, the Supreme Lord, to control, to manage, to administer various great material responsibilities. And because they have such huge responsibilities vested in them, they also have some powers. You see? Authority and responsibility must go hand in hand. Modern management says Krishna already managed it that way. So they also have authority, they also have responsibility. But they have limited authority. So whatever they can give is actually limited. Whatever they can give is material. And anything that is material is bound to be destroyed by time. That is why Krishna says, less intelligent people approach. And Krishna says, Krishna is actually fulfilling the devotee's desires. I am in everyone's heart as super soul, as Paramatma. As soon as one desires to worship a particular type of Devata, Krishna is the one who makes that faith steady. And with such steady faith, when he is worshipping that particular Devata, he gets his desires fulfilled. But actually those benefits are bestowed by Krishna only. Why? Because that ability to give you fulfillment of your desire, that Devata, whoever is giving it to you, that Devata has got it from Krishna only. You see? So whatever they have got, that authority, they are giving it to you. I always give this example of you go to the RTO, you get your driving license. But if you go to the RTO, he cannot give you something else, for example. Why? Because his authority is to give you a driving license only. But if you go to a much higher authority who has everything under his control, just imagine, But if you grease the palm of the RTO, you can get your things done quickly, and then you may think that he is a very great personality. Same way, you go to the Devatas and get some things done. So Krishna says, men of small intelligence, they worship the Devatas, and their fruits are limited and temporary. And those who worship Devatas will go to the place of the Devatas. But my devotees ultimately come to my supreme abode. So, if you are worshipping Devata Aradhana, you will go to your Ishta Devata's planet. And if you are worshipping Krishna, you will go back to that place from where you don't have to come back again. This is the greatest difference between worshipping a Devata and worshipping the Devadeva Jagannatha. Devata of all the Devatas, who is also the Lord of the universe, Jagannatha, Krishna. If you worship him, we go back to Krishna's spiritual realm and we don't have to return. But Devatas are all existing in the material realm in higher planetary systems, so you can go there and come back and go there and come back. This we will discuss in detail in the 8th chapter. And unintelligent man, Krishna says, who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was impersonal before and now I have assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. Krishna says, only unintelligent men think that I am impersonal or I don't have personality. It is because they cannot understand my higher nature. That transcendental Divya Swabhava and Divya Swarupa of Krishna, unintelligent people cannot understand. So they think, okay, he has no personality, he has no form, like that. But the topmost understanding is that Krishna has a beautiful form, Krishna has a wonderful personality, but there is nothing material about it. It's entirely spiritual. So, abuddhaya, Krishna says, that means possessing no intelligence. And why is it that the impersonalist cannot see Krishna? They are also detached from matter. They have no material desire. They are transcendentalists. They are also trying to understand the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. But they cannot see Krishna, the person. Why? Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudhoyam na abhijanati loko mam ajam avyayam. Krishna says, I am never manifest. Naham prakasha. I don't show myself to the who? Mudhoyam abhijanati na abhijanati. The mudha, the foolish, the unintelligent, for them I am always covered by my yoga maya, my divine maya. This yoga maya is called the Antaranga Shakti. Previously we spoke about the Bhinna Prakriti Ashtada, the Bahiranga Shakti or the Mahamaya, and here Krishna speaks about Yoga Maya Samavrita. I am covered by my Antaranga Shakti, and therefore they don't understand that I am Ajam, I am unborn, I am Avyayam, I am infallible. So these things you cannot understand. Who cannot understand? The foolish and the unintelligent. We are both. So that is why we are not understanding Krishna. Simple. Why? Because we think that Krishna does not have a personality. We think that Krishna is not a person. You see? So we cannot understand Krishna. So we have to approach Bhagavad Gita very humbly and listen to these instructions given directly by Krishna. And see, if Maya is preventing us from knowing Krishna, will Maya also prevent Krishna from knowing us? Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu veda na kaschana. Oh Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present and all that are yet to come in the future. I also know all the living entities. See, I understand Vartamanani, what is happening now, Bhavishyani, what is going to happen in the future, Cha Bhutani, what happened previously, Mam tu Veda na kaschana. But nobody understands me, nobody knows me. So, because Krishna is controlling everything, Krishna knows everything, past, present, future. We are being controlled by Krishna's energy, so except the present, we don't know anything. When I say only present, I mean this present Janma. Even in this present Janma, if we are asked a question, what did I do 1 week ago, I don't even know. So this is how our knowledge retaining capacity is. You see, just imagine Krishna, he knows everything that happened ever, whatever is happening now, whatever is going to happen in the future. It's one of the things, why always Krishna is smiling? Because he knows. And why are we always frowning? Because we don't know. Right? Krishna has always got, you see any painting of Krishna, always he's got a smile on his face. Why? Because he knows what's going to happen, what's happening, what happened. Everything he knows. and everything he is simply smiling at it. You see? But we can't do that because we are worried about future, we are crying about past, we are struggling through the present, etc., etc., etc. And then Krishna also explains how the living entities become covered by this Maya, which is stopping them from understanding Krishna. And he also explains how we can become free from Maya. So the wonderful thing about Bhagavad Gita is it will present the problem situation, it will also present the reason for that problem situation, it will also present the solution for that problematic situation. That is why this is complete knowledge. Simply we have to give our mind to it, and utilize our intelligence to try and understand it. So, how does it happen? Ichhadvesha samuddhena dvandvamohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sargeyanti parantapa. Hey Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, Parantapa, Arjuna is called here. All living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by the dualities arisen from desire and hate, Ichha and Dvesha. All dualities that we see in life is coming out of Ichha, Dvesha, desire and hate. And from the beginning, the Baddha Jiva is always born into this dual world only, desire and hate. And because of that, they are not able to understand. At times, they are repulsed by a thought of a supreme who is beyond themselves, you see. So, this always keeps happening, that you love something, then you hate that same thing. Or you love something, you hate something, you love something, you hate something. So, they are always thinking, this is my house, this is my wife, I am the master of this, I am the master of that. These are all delusion from dualities. And the Jnani, whom we spoke about earlier, he is actually beyond this duality. That is why Krishna says that he is better placed. And is anyone actually able to overcome this duality and become a devotee? Now Krishna says everybody is born into this duality. You are always into thinking that I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. And that keeps bringing you Ichha and Dvesha, dual, everything on the dual platform. So is anybody actually capable of coming out of this? The very next verse Krishna addresses that. Yesham tvantagadam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandomoha nirmukta bhajante mam dradavrata. Speaks about how you become dradavrata. Dradavrata means determination. Drida. Vrata. Vrata means I have taken, like a vrata, and it is very drida. How does that happen? Jananam punyakarmanam. People who have acted, people who have done punya karmas in their previous janmas and in this janma, and their papam has been eradicated from dvandva moha, from the dualities of delusion, nirmukta. They engage themselves in my service, dradavrata. So, pious people are qualified for this. Not exactly because they are pious, but because you are a pious person, you will attract the karuna of a bhakta. The bhakta is always looking for somebody who is pious, somebody who is favorable to bhakti. And that bhakta then gives us the karunya, the bhakta's prasada. He becomes pleased with us. So, through the association with such bhaktas, actually we will be able to engage in Krishna's service with determination. And there is another kind of devotee also with mixed intentions, That is, Krishna says, intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activity. That is, he is now talking about the Muktikami Bhakta. That is, I want liberation. I want to get out of this material situation. So, they will always endeavor, they are always trying for what? They want to get liberated from this Janana Marana Chakra. They are tired of it. They have gone through it enough times. They have understood it's a waste of time. So their entire focus is on Mukti. And he says, because that particular devotee is on the Brahman level. Why? Because he understands the Adhyatma, that is the Jiva, and he also understands Karma, how the activities are spanned about. And this is actually a prelude to the 8th chapter, where Krishna will speak about this in further detail. By closing the chapter, Krishna says that those who are in full consciousness of me, those who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all the methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So, now Krishna speaks about how he is the governing principle of the manifestation, and the Devatas and the Yajna. As I said, these two verses are a prelude to the coming chapter, and speaks about how they can know Krishna even at the time of death. So, Krishna is saying that, by naming himself as the governing principle, Krishna is now directing all our knowledge, all our desire, and all the service towards his lotus feet. Krishna says, now all of you come and perform your service at my feet. And this has special significance to Arjuna, because he is standing on the battlefield about to fight. And why is it important for him? Because with this consciousness, one can know Krishna at the time of death. It's very important. Why? Because Arjuna is on the battlefield and he is facing death at any moment. Right? So, very significant for Arjuna, very significant for us as well. So, this is how the 7th chapter gets concluded. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.